What's up, guys? My name is Nick Farrelly, and for my introductory project, today I'm going to be talking about a player development report that I did for a Harvard baseball player, comparing 2024 versus 2025 using data analysis, visualization, and obviously the biggest thing, which is communication. So kind of why I chose this as my introduction project is because I wanted to make something that was both really cool, kind of show off to everyone with my skills and stuff like that, but also more so to make it actionable for someone. So I took one of a case study of one of our players at the University of Hartford that I thought could really benefit from this. A guy who started most of his freshman year, had a really good freshman year, and sophomore year really kind of went downhill. Didn't really have the season he wanted to have, and we didn't want that we wanted him to have as well. So my objective is kind of identify why that performance dipped from freshman to sophomore year, 2024 to 2025, and how we could improve it based on film, analytics, and any sort of stuff like that. So obviously my role, I'm a student manager and director of analytics and development now. But the role obviously is an analytics driven performance evaluation, but also being able to bridge that gap between analytics and being able to communicate it with a player. So first off, as a basis of what I wanted to break down for him was kind of just like the splits of like the easy performance metrics you may look at, which is average, on base percentage, slugging percentage, and OPS. Obviously, you could see from 2024 to 2025, there were all dips in average and all that stuff, especially a really big gap between OPS between 2024 and 2025. Obviously, those are big metrics, kind of we talked over and shown in the graph before, but I really wanted to dive deeper into what was really the telling issue for him from freshman to sophomore year. And obviously, I looked at stuff like K rate, walk rate, ground ball, line drive, fly ball rates, kind of where he was hitting the ball and how he was hitting the ball, as well as whiff, swing, and chase rates, which we kind of will see later in the video. But the main things I wanted to point out were that was striking out a lot more. He walked a little less, and his fly ball and ground ball difference, which we'll see a little later, had a really big difference. So I think the biggest shift was more balls in the air for him, and a major decrease in ground ball rates as well, where he was seeing these backside and middle singles on the ground, and he wasn't really seeing that after. And obviously with the numbers, you could tell the quality of contact kind of dipped, and his whiff rate was also a lot bigger. As you can see with the graphs, the biggest discrepancy is the ground ball rate. You saw kind of a tiny increase actually in line drive rate, which is kind of interesting for me. And then also, obviously, like I said before, increase in fly ball rate. When I was looking at his batted ball profiles, looking at where he was hitting the ball, a lot of his singles and a lot of his doubles actually were gappers and like the left center gap, 5-6 hole singles, up the middle singles. Whereas this year, those kind of deteriorated. They kind of fell off. And there was a lot more fly balls to right center, a lot more pop outs to the right side of the infield, and that was kind of again a big thing for him in terms of his production dropping off, was that he was losing that ground ball line drive approach and more so trying to launch the ball, which may have been to mechanical issues or anything like that again we'll kind of go into further. So kind of going more into that with the zone strengths, I thought that it was a really big thing to look at both 2024 and 2025 and look at his heat map, where his hits were coming from, as well as where they were landing on the field. And I saw that they were actually really similar. When they obviously there was a lot more in 2024 versus 2025. The ones that did come in 2025 was when he was playing to his strengths. Those strengths again were going through the 5-6 hole, going up the middle, trying to hit that left center gap on the backside doubles. That was obviously his biggest strength, and I wanted to make sure that he knew that. Obviously, you could see in the heat map over there that a lot of his pitches were middle out and low, being able to go down and get it, and also just poke it the other way. And I felt like he kind of got away from that sophomore year. Was trying to pull the ball a lot more, really swinging at a lot more pitches upper in the zone that that might not be his biggest strength. So obviously his primary zone damage was in that middle low quadrant, and it was consistent through both seasons. And that's where he should focus his development on, focus his approach. When he gets those pitches in that zone, he should attack them. Now, the biggest thing I saw for him, my biggest takeaway, was with the swing and miss patterns. Obviously, you could see that I broke it down between 24 and 25. I know 25's cut off, but the biggest concentration was breakers and off-speed pitches in that lower quadrant. He was missing a lot of changeups, sliders, curveballs, and that was like the biggest strikeout pitch for him. On any two strikeouts, that's where kind of the pitchers would mainly attack him. But the biggest discrepancy I saw between the 2 years was the fastball miss rate. Obviously, you can see, I know it's kind of cut off, but in 25, you see a lot more red dots up in the zone, which are fastballs. He was whiffing a lot more at fastballs, swinging a lot more at those high fastballs, where in 2024, he would lay off or he would put a good swing on it, do damage, and hit it either the other way or pull it. So that was obviously a big thing, was that he was whiffing a lot of those pitches. A lot of the ones maybe he saw as cookies earlier in his career, he saw and kind of missed out on those swings, missed out on those really hittable pitches. and that again that kind of snowballed into getting into tougher counts, getting tougher pitches in the zone, especially within the concentrated zones of the lower quadrant off speed and breakers. So that's what really I thought led him to his struggles in his sophomore year. Now, graphically, I just want to display how much he was swinging and missing by pitch type in 2025. Fastball, slider, and curveball were all equal at roughly 43%, where changeup was at 38%. In 2024, his changeup whiff rate was actually around 66%, and his fastball whiff rate was around 20%. So a really big dip, good for him in terms of changeups, was whiffing a lot less. And fastball wise was again obviously the biggest thing that I saw within his game. That actually had a really huge spike of 23% more whiff rate in 2025. So obviously that was the biggest thing for him in terms of production, was missing the fastball at a much more alarming rate. Now on a baseline level, you may say, oh, his plate discipline wasn't great. Clearly his big jump in whiff rate was due to the fact that he wasn't swinging at good pitches, which is actually not necessarily true. His chase rates, 16%, 12%, 6%, 17%, they were all very similar to ones in 2024 when he was having really good performances. He's a really disciplined hitter, doesn't swing at balls, really, again, has a good eye, walks a lot, so that obviously wasn't the main issue. The main issue is that he was missing the hittable pitches. In 2024, he was hitting those hittable pitches, and now he isn't. So as you can see within this chart, his kind of swing decisions in terms of by pitch type, his whiffs and chase. He has good strike recognition as a main strength for him, especially just as a hitter in general. And even though his performance dropped a ton, his discipline didn't collapse at all. He really stayed. He stayed with his approach, which really you don't see a lot. You kind of see people that are struggling. They may change their approach. They may start swinging a crap ton. But this really wasn't the issue for him. It was more so he was swinging at the right pitches. He just really wasn't hitting them. So we'll kind of get into that further. That's kind of what led me to break down more film and stuff like that. So kind of going deeper, I wanted to look more into count and sequence splits. You see a lot of guys that are really comfortable when they first step in the box. They like to swing at the first three pitches. They don't really want the pitcher to get into much of a groove. They want to attack early. And you see other guys that really want to stay in the box for a long time. They want to see pitches. They want to foul them off. They want to work the counts, work his pitch count. So I wanted to look at that for this particular player. So in 2024 and 2025, he was pretty good, pretty even in terms of the early in the count. And then obviously getting deeper in the count, he struggled a lot more in 2025 with that really low average. But his walks, kind of like we were talking about his plate discipline, they really didn't waver at all. He was still being very disciplined, still working those walks. But the biggest thing I saw for that was in 2024 he had 8 Ks on pitches 4 through 6 and beyond, whereas in 2025 he struck out 17 times. So almost he doubled that, and even more so in 2025, which again kind of leads to he was whiffing a lot more. Those pitches that he was whiffing on, he wasn't fouling off, he wasn't getting deeper into the counts. He really wasn't doing well in that regard. So that was a really big issue. And then in terms of counts, there was a major drop off in 2 strike counts. He did a really good job in 2024 of fouling pitches off and then getting a pitch to hit and kind of hitting it the other way. Whereas in 2025, he would again kind of whiff more and end up striking out on those at bats. The walks were still present though, but the strikeouts increased. Now, something that I was able to back by numbers, but also believe it's a really big mental hurdle for some guys, is situational hitting. I wanted to break down both years and kind of see how he was doing with runners on base versus bases empty. You see a lot of guys when there's bases empty, especially when they're struggling, they feel a lot more relaxed. They're like, oh, there's really no pressure on me to do anything. There's no one on base. No one's done anything this inning. I kind of got a clean slate. I can do whatever. They trust their mechanics more, trust their approach more. And when there's guys on base, they start pressing more. They feel like it's a really big pressure situation. They got to drive runs in. They got to kind of prove themselves. And I believe that that's kind of what happened in his head. In 2024, he was really good with runners on base. He was, again, performing a lot better at that time. So he's like, oh, I trust myself. I trust my approach in these RBI situations, and I'm gonna kind of come through. In 2025 was the complete opposite. Maybe mentally, obviously the numbers back it up, but mentally he may have been like, oh, this is a really big chance for me. I got to kind of prove myself, get myself back in the lineup. Let me see what I can do. Starts questioning his approach, his mechanics. Starts swinging and missing, stuff like that. And then obviously you could see bases empty wise in 2025 obviously 2024 he had no hits, but 2025 he was much better when he was lax. He was in bases empty, kind of no pressure situations. So I feel like that's obviously a big thing, more looking at the mental side of the game, but also backing it up with numbers. So as you could tell, overall there's a large decline with runners on base and a much stronger production when bases empty this past year, which suggests that he may be pressing in really big situations. So a big thing coming from a D3 program, in my opinion, was the use of synergy with this. We don't have access to TrackMan, blast motion, a lot of like the really high level metrics in terms of barrel rates and anything like that, doing expected stuff. So I thought it'd be really cool to look at film, especially for certain guys that may not be as data driven. Again, people like to look at numbers, but they don't really know how to make it actionable at times. So being able to break down film and back it by numbers is something that I thought was a really big thing, especially when trying to communicate a way to improve and being able to be like, hey, this is what you can do in your CADE session to kind of help you out. This is what I see. So kind of looking at 2024 versus 2025. In 2024, this player was much more straight up, as you could tell. His hands were a lot like different place. He was a little more crouched in this regard in 2025, and his again, as you can see, his knees were a little more bent over. So he was more hunched over, at which I believe when I was looking at his film, breaking down his best swings from 2024 versus 2025, those really high rates fly ball wise were because of his lunge. He was lunging more and kind of opening up and kind of going up this way in terms of his swing path. Where in 2024, when he was straight up, he was going more down, which led to the more hard ground ball contact you saw that I was talking about with the 5-6 hole and up the middle, a lot of singles that way. That was turned into a lot of flares and pop-ups to the middle infield. Also, timing issues. When I looked at 2024, he had a very simple load, not a big leg kick, and in 2025 he added a leg kick, which again kind of killed his timing. I think that was a big discrepancy with the fastball whiff rate. In 2024, he was on time with the fastball because his timing mechanism was much more comfortable for him. He felt like he could be more on time, especially even in the zones like a high fastball where he wasn't really prone to have great contact with. He was still able to hit the ball well in that regard. Where in 2025, adding that leg kick made him just this smidgen slower in terms of being able to put the ball in play and swing. So that's what led to a lot of miss and a lot of bad contact for him. So I feel like those were the two biggest things looking at his swing, breaking down film. And again, these are really easy fixes in my opinion. You go to the cage, you just kind of stand up straight and you start working on your leg kick and what really feels more comfortable for you. I walked through a few cage sessions with him, allowing him to kind of work through this stuff, kind of take more videos, see what I saw, and then kind of do a comparison of the cage versus last year versus freshman year. And again, being able to break that down and say, okay, these are really the big strengths. Where do you feel comfortable in working through that with him? Again, being able to use all the data that I had from all these slides and being able to make it like, hey, let's make this actionable. Let's give you a cage routine. Let's work on these certain things, these certain mechanics that you might be able to bring into the season. Now, coming from a former player's point of view, now analyst, coach, using data to kind of bridge the gap. Having it be digestible for players to again make actionable insights. I wanted to give a few recommendations to him. We worked throughout these all in the fall, through cage routines, through live ABs, just me taking videos of him, kind of showing him the ways, and kind of working through it together. Again, first I would say highlighting commit to the middle away approach. He had really good success with that. In both years, he just has to refine it, make sure he's attacking that early. Anytime he's getting that, he can hit those 5-6 singles, those middle up the middle line drives, those gapper doubles, and also punish the inside mistakes when he can, when he wants to, when they attack him there. But obviously, early in the count, attack your pitch. That's what I kind of said to him. Then going into the leg kick, again, he had a much simpler move in 2024. So I said, again, working through with him in the cage routine, he thought it was a lot more comfortable for him to have that simpler leg kick. Started a little earlier as well, so that, again, he's on time for more fastballs. He's not whiffing as much at all. This allows him to, again, have harder hit rate, putting the ball in play a lot more as well, and cutting down in that fastball whiff rate, because that was obviously the biggest thing for him, the biggest struggle for him in 2025. Next, kind of maintaining that taller, looser stance. We kind of saw throughout his cage routine, throughout his live ABs, when he was taller, he was much more smooth, much more compact with his swing. His swing plane was much better. He was having that more ground ball line drive approach rather than when he was more hunched over, kind of having him fly open and having those flares, having those fly balls, and having that really high fly ball rate. So again, just being able to be smoother, be taller in his stance, looser, not necessarily hunched over with the knees. And again, it produced a lot better swings for him, better swing quality, better quality of contact. So that was obviously a big thing. Lastly, for him, obviously trust your plate discipline. Like we kind of said, he had really good chase rates. He's not really chasing. Also keep that approach, but also keep that approach in RBI situations. Don't tell yourself you're not going to be able to drive guys in. That's more the mental side of the game. Obviously backed by the numbers, but again, being able to not pressure yourself. Don't put more pressure on yourself than there already is. Just allowing him to kind of be free and swing as much as he needed to. Trust your approach in that way. So again, bridging that mental side of the game was also a really big thing for him. And all this kind of ties into, for me, I know bridging the gap is the big motto at Diamond Hitting, but I thought necessarily for this, bridging the gap between data and players and being able to communicate with that with them and make it actionable in a baseball point of view was a really big thing for me, especially coming from certain players that may not have that background, was obviously really huge.